Well, I'm back. um, yeah, I know. I usually do them on Wednesday or Tuesday or Thursday. I just had a lot of stuff going on, which I'm not going to divulge here. This is strictly film review. And first of all, I want to say sorry about it. I'll do my best to be more stable with uploading. Sorry. Well, anyway, originally I was going to do a certain video, one of my favorites, but for some reason I couldn't understand it for a while, so I'm just gonna work on it. But for now, I want to do one of my other favorites, 90s classic made by the guy who made Captain America. I think Chris something or other, Chris Columbus or something like that. I just know he's responsible for Captain America. But he also made this 90s gem. It was basically it's called The Pagemaster, made by and owned by 20th Century Fox. And well, basically the whole thing is it's made to promote reading. One of those times back in the day when people actually cared and wanted to teach people, but actually at the same time show them a good film. In my opinion, show them a film for the kids and stuff, get their attention to read, and it works sometimes depending on things. Ironically, for me, it worked to a point, but for me, well, anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Well, I'll tell you what it's basically about. Well, it starts off that it's about this boy played by Kevin McAllister himself, Macaulay Culkin, before he became too old and didn't get much attention. No offense to him, I'm still a big fan of his. But so far the only thing I've known about him is that he does Robot Chicken and he's dating or engaged to London Tipton. But back in this movie, he was a pretty good actor. He played basically a kid suffering from what Lucy Van Pelt refers to as heliophasia, I think it is, which is the fear of everything from, afraid to eat tuna because of the mercury levels, afraid to get hit by a ball because he might get a tumor, afraid to jump ramps because he might break his leg or something. I mean, I get it. Everyone's afraid of something, but that's a little extreme for my taste. I mean, who am I to talk? I'm afraid of things too. I fear, mostly my three fears consist of dolls, needles, and hell. Dolls because of Chucky. Needles because I was poked all my life by doctors, mostly some of them that didn't know what to do. And hell because, of course, I'm a Christian and I don't want to go to hell. And, well, anyway, back to the story. This kid gets scared. He's asleep. He wakes up due to a thunderstorm. He looks out the window and basically sees the poltergeist tree. And it freaks him out. So he goes running to his mother and father, who are in bed, still talking and discussing their son. The father is the mother's being more calm, while the father is being a little bit insulting about the son, because no matter what he does, it doesn't make his son happy. Everything he tries to put him into, he's afraid of. He finds something wrong with it. Like I said, he puts him in Little League. He's afraid to get hit with a ball because he might get a concussion. He builds him a tree house, and the kid's afraid of heights. They make him a sandwich, and of course he's afraid because the protein causes problems for him. And it worries the dad that he's not doing a good job. And next thing you know, the son just feels bad about it. He goes to bed, hearing the thunder, and he's like, I'm alright. And the interesting thing is, this kid's room is basically a earthquake kit. It's basically an earthquake kit slash doom preppers area. So everywhere you look, there's everything. in there to ward off natural disasters, and it's interesting. And, you know, the next morning, in the morning, the dad is fixing up the treehouse. And the dad is played by Ed Begley Jr., the crazy doctor. I think he's the crazy doctor from Kingdom Hospital, but he's also on the movie Greed. He's one of the greedy family members that's risking Michael J. Fox to get them money. But yeah, maybe I'll do a review on that one another day. Well, anyway, Eddie Begley Jr., his father, is building him the treehouse, and he's telling his son, "Hey, how you doing? Why don't you come up here?" And the son's like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna." And he's like, "No, come on, I made this. It's sturdy. You're good." And he's like, "Dad, you know how the risk of me climbing up there and I could injure myself. There's a big percent chance that I could get hurt because it's a tree. There's a more bigger chance I can get hurt because it's a dang there's a dang ladder. It's a big whole percentage thing with him." So the dad's like, "Okay, fine, put me the nails in the bucket and lift it up here." But the son's not paying attention. And just a little hijink thing ensues where the dad's about to ask him for the nails, and the son finally understands, and he drops the rope, which causes the bucket to hit the dad on the head. The dad falls from the treehouse on the ladder, and the son's like, "Are you okay? Are you still alive?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm still kicking. I'm good. I'm fine." The mom comes out. She helps him up. He's like, "Look, what I want you to do is I want you to go to the hardware store, give me some nails." And he's like, "But Dad, I can't." And then he's like, "You can't." And the dad's like, "You can't live your life based in fear." For him, that's an actual good lesson. And so he decides to go. He's like, "Okay, fine, I'll go. I don't have a choice." And then he's like wondering in his mind, like, "Oh, I'm gonna get hurt. Something's gonna happen to me." And he goes, and it's interesting because his outfit, I'm saying, he's basically a doom prepper, because this kid is decked out in all brands of safety gear. His bike too. It's it's got you got blinkers. You got reflectors. A helmet with that basically scans his noggin for damage or whatever. And he's going off, and then passes some neighborhood kids having fun, doing wheelies and jumping boards, and they see him and they're like, "Hey," they start making fun of him. Basically, they're like, "Dude, you look like an astronaut. Why don't you just go back to the moon, man, or jump the board with us?" And he just ignores them, and he goes away another way to the library. Not the library, the hardware store. I was jumping ahead of myself. And when he's going to the hardware store, he still hears them heckling him, but the further he gets, it's so eerie, because it's basically like God's like, "Okay, I'm gonna help you." Like, if God's trying to help him in this movie, it's so funny. This one part, it literally is like God's trying to help him, because there's a tunnel, and he's like, "I'm not going in there." He's all nervous and afraid, and then suddenly, bolt of lightning strikes, and then just goes, and he goes in there, and as he's going in there, all the lights are popping like crazy, and it's like I said, God's guiding him. He's like, "You need to go here. I'm gonna use you. You need to go here. I'm gonna help you out." And of course, it gets weirder. Trees start falling on him, aiming for, as if they're aimed at him, telling him, "Go here. You need to go here. You need to go here." And of course, he finally stops at the public library instead of the hardware store. And he gets there, and he's like, "Hello, is anyone there? Is anyone there?" And of course, out pops Christopher Lloyd. If those who don't know who he is, of course, he's Doctor Doom and from Roger Rabbit. He's Dennis from Camp Nowhere, and of course the Doc from Back to the Future. Comes out, sees the kid, and acts very strange or dangerous towards him. He's like, It's like, hey, a new customer, a new patron in the library. How may I help you? Do you want no, don't tell me. Basically, thinking he's a psychic, trying to guess, kind of like the Wizard and the Wizard of Oz with Dorothy when they first met. He's like, you want some, you're interested in some fantasy, you know, dragons and knights and round tables and fairies and stuff. And he's like, no, I'm not here for that. He's like, you want adventure, you want pirates and swashbuckling heroes, knights and dragons. And he's like, no, I'm not here for that either, man. Get away from me. And he's like, oh, you want horror, you want scary stuff, the Headless Horseman, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, monsters, and ghouls and ghosts. And he's like, no, I'm not here for that. Even if I was, I don't have a library card. And then, boom, out pops the guy with a library. He gives him a library card. He's like, sign here. He's like, here, with this, you can get any book you want in the library. He's like, but I've been trying to tell you, I'm not here for a book. I'm only here because it's raining like cats and dogs outside, and I need to dry off, and I want to call my parents. He's like, okay, my mistake. Sorry to bug you. And he's like, well, do you have a phone? He's like, yeah. Go through that area right there, which is a big area, big maze type version of a library. And he's like, you gotta turn here, you gotta go there, you gotta go there, and you find it. The public telephone, you can't miss it. And as the kid goes, he gets kind of turned around, and well, not turned around, more like mesmerized at this nice mural that looks like, well, you look at it, it looks like something like Thor Ragnarok copied it a little bit, because it's filled with, the mural is basically every single fantasy, adventure, horror, fiction character ever known, period. You know, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and Treasure Planet. I mean, Treasure Island. Sorry, I get those mixed up. And of course, Knight versus Dragon, and in the center, the wizard of all the books, the Pagemaster. And while he's amazed by this, he's not even paying attention. He ends up slipping, knocking his head, and pulls a whole Wizard of, like I said, Wizard of Oz, Dorothy. Ends up waking up, and no one's there, and he's freaking out and looking around, and suddenly the mural starts raining watercolor all over him, and he's freaking out. He takes off his coat, and then suddenly, just the whole mural turns into this venomized, rainbow-colored ooze that is just after him, like really after him. And he's like, hello, is anyone there? I need help. Where's the exit? And he gets, if finally there's nowhere to run, he gets engulfed and pulled into Toontown. And he's freaked. At first he's like, what the heck is going on? Why do I look like a cartoon? And of course the Pagemaster, who is voiced by Christopher Lloyd, pops up and he's like, no, you're an illustration, you're a drawing. And he's like, okay, but who are you? And he's like, I'm the Pagemaster. I'm the boss of this place. And he's like, okay, but can you get me out? And he's like, yeah, this way. He's like, are you sure that's the way? He's like, yeah, this is the only way. Fiction A to Z. Your imagination can grow. You can learn a lot of things and basically preaching that books are positive, and then like gets him a magical book carriage down one of the aisles, and tells him that in order for him to get home, he has to face 3 tests. He has to go through horror, adventure, and fantasy. And when he's in trouble, look to a book. And it becomes so prominent because one of the first things he does is he crashes the bookmobile thing into a telephone booth, basically Superman's old school changing area. And when he gets up out of it, he's almost skewered by Professor Xavier in book form, and he freaks out and he's like, "Who the heck knocked me off my area? Where the heck is he? Let me at him! And he's like, "Oh, it was you little landlubber. Are you a liar or are you truth?" And he tells him, "My name's Richard Tyler." He's like, "What kind of book is that?" "I'm not a book." And he's like, "You got any proof?" And he shows him the library card, and his eyes widen as if he found a kid with a golden ticket, and he's like, "Oh, you're a customer." He's like, "Yeah," and I'm trying to get out of here. He's like, "Well, I know my way around this area. Follow me, but if I'm gonna help you, you gotta help me. You gotta check me out." And he's like, "Fine, whatever. I'll check you out of the library." And he's like, "All right, we're cool, Okay, we're gonna climb this to see the lay of the land." And he's like, "Why?" He's like, "So we can see." And he's like, "That's a if you don't notice, that's a ladder, and I have a fear of heights." And he's like, "Okay, I can handle that." And he's reading the books, and he's like, "Oh, okay, oh, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea." He opens it up, and a giant squid pops up. So the boy has no choice but to climb up the ladder with Professor X, basically. And of course, the adventurer jumps off of the ladder onto the shelf, and he tells him, "Jump, or you're gonna die." So like it's basically something like you don't want to tell a kid that, but of course he lands on the shelf, but um he loses his grip and is about to fall, and then he grabs some of the books, and ironically one of them is Whoopi Goldberg, and she basically insults him like, "You just messed up my dress. What the heck is wrong with you? Now I gotta straighten out everything." And he's like, "What are you? Who are you?" She's like, "I'm Fantasy. Who are you? What's this?" And picks up his library card, and he's like, "It's a library card." And she looks at him snottishly and like kind of insulting him, telling him, "Yeah, I know I'm a book. I can read it." And she's like just gives him this little uncomfortably look, like, "What's the one thing you want more than anything in the world?" And he's like, "To get out of here." And she's like, "Okay, but you gotta do me a favor. If I help you, you gotta get me out of here too." And he's like, "Okay, sure. Do I have to? What do I have to do? Say I believe in fairies, click my heels?" And she's like, "No, that's the wrong story, kid." And right then and there, that's when Adventure shows up, Patrick Stewart, and there's basically this little war between them, which ironically is supposed to imply that they kind of like each other later down the road, and that the boy is checking one out, checking the other out. They're fighting over like the exits this way, exits that way, and of course with the Goldberg's character, basically fairy dusts Adventure onto the floor, and he's like, "Man, this woman's nuts." And she insults him. She's like, "Let's go. This fool don't even know where we're at." And he's like, "Oh, fool, you liar! I know where we're at." And he pulls out. Of course, he pulls up the book, Hound of Baskervilles, and out pops basically a hellhound. Um, and as Cujo's chasing him, ready to have his dinner, they ditch him by escaping to the horror section. And it's interesting. Everyone's afraid, even including, well, except for Whoopi Goldberg's character, but Mr. Tough Guy Adventure's like, as long as you got me in your corner, you're all right. I'll have your back. And they go and they basically run into this spooky mansion, and they're like, run into the spooky mansion, and because ironically it says exit above it, so he has to go through it. It's basically his first trial, and he goes in there. He goes over there, and he's afraid to get in there because it's a scary place to him. Then again, this kid has, like I said, heliorophasia. He's afraid of everything, and he don't want to ring the doorbell, but they're like, "Don't be a wuss, ring it. Nothing's gonna happen to you." And he gets in the statistics, and he's like, "Just ring the bell. You're fine." As soon as he rings it, out pops Horror, voiced by Frank Welker himself. You don't know who that is? He's basically a voice actor. He's responsible mainly for the voice of Fred Jones, Scooby-Doo. And he does a good job in this. I mean, they all do their way. Each character does a great job. And as it goes on, they're freaked out about it at first because he basically looks like a hunchback from Notre Dame, and which I never really found that scary, just kind of sad, that story. And of course, um, the main character's afraid, and he's like, "Here, take it, take it, take it." And of course, horror's offended, and he's like, "I scared you. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you." And like, of course, Whoopi Goldberg's character's like, "Don't judge a book by its cover," which is a weird pun, but makes sense in that movie because it's a book movie about books and reading. And she pats his head basically like a mother to a child, which puts a weird smile on his face. Even the characters are freaked out about it. So Avenger's like, "Okay, stop sipping your tea. Let's get in the house and do what we gotta do." And he's like, Horror's like, "Don't go in there. It's too scary. It's too scary." And Avenger's like, "And your point is, why would I be afraid? I'm Avenger." And he's like, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of everything." And then he starts acting out everything he's afraid of, and of course, the main character's like, "I can relate. I'm afraid of everything too." But of course, they go in, and it's kind of spooky, kind of like a Raven spooky, Edgar Allan Poe's Raven spooky, or not Amityville spooky, but just kind of like I said, Raven, Edgar Allan Poe spooky. And he's freaked out, and then next thing you know, he tries to escape, can't, and then he runs into Dr. Jekyll, played by Leonard Nimoy, and he offers to help him. And they give him this whole spiel about how they're trying to get out of here. And then next thing you know, as he's listening, he starts talking about his experiment. In a weird way, he's like, everyone here is in danger because everyone has a good side, everyone has an evil side, and they show it obviously with when they're looking at the bottles. The main character looks, and he looks kind of goofy, whereas the goofy character Horror, who looks like something from The Hunchback, like I said, looks like Mr. Dreamy in the glass. And when they walk through, after he's done doing his speech, he's like, "Anyone want a drink?" And he pours the formula that basically switches his personality and offers to drink for Adventure. And he himself has a drink, and they're about to drink it, but Horror, being obsessed with Adventure for some reason, saves his life in a way because he wants the olive. He's like, "Can I have the olive? Can I have a taste?" And he makes him drop the drink, which eats to the floor and causes, I don't know, wolves that are under the house for some reason to howl. And they try to warn Dr. Jekyll not to drink the formula, but he still does, and in turn causes him to switch personalities into his dark persona, Mr. Hyde. And they're freaking out, they're trying to get his attention, but he goes psycho and starts tearing everything apart, trying to kill him, trying to get rid of him. But luckily, they're mainly he's just trying to get rid of Horror, because Horror gets trapped in a chandelier and is being pulled by Mr. Hyde down below, which no one's not sure how deep that area is under there for some reason. But luckily, Fantasy's able to help him with her magic wand, which only works in some areas when it wants to for some reason. And as they're escaping, they don't know which way to go. Did they go down? Did they go up? But then they decide, let's get away from whatever the red, fiery sounding, danger sounding area is down there and go up. As they go up, they run into a bunch of other horror literatures. Well, they don't really run into them, but you can read them yourself. Like, of course, Sleepy Hollow, yada yada yada, and a bunch of ghosts come out of the books and start spooking them, and they're like, "What's going on here?" And then Horror goes, "We're stuck in a ghost story area." And they finally make it all the way up. They're up on a cliff. They're climbing down. He's afraid of heights, so he doesn't want to do it. But they're like, "Come on, we books have spines, raise yours." So he starts climbing down and saying that he's got it. But he loses his footing. He almost falls. He grabs a gargoyle, and then is reminded by the Pagemaster, like, look inside yourself and find your courage. And he's able to swing down, and he's like, "Wow, I did that! Yay!" And next thing you know, the first phase of his test is done. So they realize Adventure is next. They see an exit over the sea, and of course the only one happy about it is Adventure, and they end up going in a boat across the sea, where Adventure is technically the only one having fun, while everyone else is kind of freaking out because the water kind of looks like a storm's about to start. And as they're halfway in the ocean, they run across Captain Ahab. And of course, Captain Ahab is associated with Moby Dick. And the only thing they can think of, like the only thing they can think to say is like, wow, there's another person with a peg leg. And of course, Fantasy insults and says, wow, that's a fashion statement around these parts, huh? And during that part, they get questioned by Captain Ahab if they saw Moby Dick. And right then and there, when he says it, the whale pops up, and it's basically like the original Jaws thing. And they're fighting. Sorry, itching. They're fighting, and as they're fighting, they get devoured, and next thing you know, the whale decides, okay, I already had my snack, time for my meal, and he goes after the books and Richard Tyler. But luckily, Richard Tyler survives due to weird circumstances. He survived by a barrel, and then runs into Adventure, and they're sitting on a board, or sitting on top of they're sitting on a board, and they run across, they're trapped by sharks, and at the same time they're a little worried because they don't know what happened to their friends. They don't know if they got eaten, or they got drowned, or they're dead or alive, or what. And during this time, while they're debating whether or not they're alive or not, they run across some unsavory characters, pirates. And of course, Richard Tyler's like, we need help, hey, we need help, come and help us, come and save us, come on, please, we need some help here. And Adventure's like, dude, slow your roll, you don't know if we can trust these guys, stranger danger, you know. And of course, Richard Tyler's like, he gets in the boat, they help him in the boat, and he's like, wow, we're glad you came, we're looking for our friends, they look like him. And as they're tossing him in the boat, they're like, you guys are all we got today. And they start laughing, and next thing you know, something appears from the fog, from the mist, and it's a pirate ship. And Avengers like, uh-oh, we're in deep doo-doo. And they're like, what are you talking about? And they're like, yeah, that ship belongs to Long John Silver. And as he's about to pull out his weapon, they have a gun on him. He's like, calm down. He wants live company, and we don't want to hurt you. So they end up getting kidnapped by the pirates. And the pirates are like, okay, welcome aboard. You're going to be our new little manservant. And he's like, yeah, I would love to, but I gotta go home. He's like, no, you belong to us. And then right then and there, of course, Adventure's like, yeah, you touch that kid, I'm gonna hurt you. And then that's when they, like, he knows him. He's like, welcome aboard, long time no see. And he's like, by the way, you're not after my treasure, are you? He's like, what treasure? You don't have a treasure. And that's what upsets his crew. And he's like, he's lying. I have a bunch of treasure for you guys. We're gonna split it 50-50. Best part, just search them because they might have a map on them. So they pull out everything but the kitchen sink out of Adventure, whereas they take from Richard his milk money and his library card, which Long John Silver chucks it in the sea, making Adventure freak out because that's his only way out. They make them, as that's happening, they make their way to Treasure Island, ironically. As they're going, Richard Tyler and Adventure are planning their escape at the same time, while the pirates are basically idiots and they're debating where the treasure is. They're like, in the middle of the waterfall, no, east by some broccoli. And Long John Silver's like, "You idiots! It's west by a tree." And then they end up running into, of course, a dead body, and they're freaking out, peeing their pants. And he's like, "Stop being pansies! It's pointing the way to the damn treasure." And they're excited, basically like a kid going to Disneyland. But ironically, like it says in the book, there ain't nothing in the box, just 2 shillings, which upsets them and they want to mutiny. So during all this, that's when Richard and Adventure untie themselves and they're about to make their break. But something mysterious happens. There's mysteriously scary for them happens because for some reason pirates are super superstitious and they start hearing strange noises. And ironically, Adventure knows the voices that it, of course, and it turns out the voices are horror and fantasy. They survived, and they help rescue their friends from the pirates. Whereas Adventure gets locked up in the treasure chest because of his kookiness. And after they'd done doing that, Richard tells him, "Man, like Richard is basically gonna go, like trying to get away from Long John Silver. Long John Silver tries to take him with him, and of course Richard has the sword, and he's like, "Get away from me! Stay back! Get away from me!" And of course, Long John Silver's like, "You couldn't hurt somebody with that, you know." And he's like, "You know what? I'm just gonna go, and you're a good kid, Richard Tyler." And he takes off, and he's like, "I hope to see you around soon." And he takes off, ironically, and then they're like hugging, and they're like, "Oh man, I wish my dad could have seen me. Oh, this was so exhilarating." And he looks at him, he's like, "What happened to you guys? I thought you two were gone." And he's like, "Yeah, we almost were, but this guy discovered he could float." And of course, Adventure's angry. He's stuck in the box, but Horror lets him out. And he's like, "I could have fought. I could have won. I could have kicked some butt." And he's like, "Yeah, that's his way of saying thank you." And of course, Horror's like, "You're welcome." He's like, "Yeah, we're Adventure. We kicked some butt." And he's like, "Get away from me." He's like, "What?" He's like, "I just want to be like you." He's like, "You're not me, and you'll never be me. You're just you. Get away from me," which basically hurts his feelings, and he goes the other way to cry. While Adventure's walking around just being a cranky, angry Mr. Krabs type of person because Horror annoys him. And while he's doing that, he runs across the library card. And during all this, Richard's all upset and sad because he lost the library card. Fantasy's trying to console him, saying, "Don't give up on your dreams. Sometimes you gotta fight to make your dreams come true." Yeah, I know what you're saying. And next thing you know, they're there. Adventure shows up, and he basically does some stupid little game of guess what's in my hand, and she gives him the library card, and he makes some excuse like, "Oh, I fought like 3, 4 sharks to get it, and they didn't even touch me." Of course, Fantasy knows it's a lie, and and Richard's like asking him, "Where's Horror? Wasn't he with you?" He's like, "Yeah, I saw him, but I don't know." And of course, Fantasy's like, "Get off your butt and go find him." He's like, "Yes, ma'am." And he goes to look for him, and he finds that he is basically taking the place of Gulliver in Gulliver's Travels, tied up by the little people. Luckily, Adventure scares him off and unties Horror and starts bearing his soul to him, saying that he's a good man, he's worthy of being him, he would give his life for his friend. And of course, Horror wakes up and he's like, "Oh, that's so beautiful." And they find him and they're like, "Are you alright? Are you okay?" He's like, "Yes, thanks to my best friend in the world." And he hugs him. He's like, "Get away from me, cooties! Get off me! Get off me!" And then it's of course shown that they're in Fantasy's world now. They gotta go through her territory. So as they're going, instead of like exploring some of her stories like they did and giving us at least a little hint, you just get like what do you call them? One of those little reels with a very corny 90s song teaching you to believe in yourself. They run across fairies. They run across Mother Goose, Yellow Brick Road, um, Humpty Dumpty, and of course they finally get to the area they need to get to for the exit. But it's in the path of a cave. And ironically, when they're about to get there, Adventure finds his sword in the cave, and starts playing with it. Yeah, that sounds like a dirty joke. Please don't make, don't, just don't. Um, I'm not that kind of person right now. I'm not that kind of person. I'm gonna make no joke. And he starts as he's testing his skills with the sword. Again, I'm not making no joke here. He wakes up the cave. It turns out the cave is a dragon, and it decides to attack Richard Tyler and the books. But Richard Tyler gets away while the books are stuck there. Nice move on his part. Because he's too concerned with getting home. But then he has a change of heart and decides, I'm gonna go back and save my friends. So he goes back, but he runs into a knight's corpse. No one knows who this knight is or whatever. It's just there. And he takes the helmet, the shield, and the sword. I just wonder if the rest of the armor probably fit him. He couldn't even put that on. And he goes to fight the dragon. Very terribly, I might add. But at least his friends were cheering him on, because Adventure couldn't do nothing. He tried. The only good thing that came for him was he got to make out with Fantasy before she kicked his butt. And during all this, Richard Tyler gets eaten. During all the fighting, he gets eaten by the dragon. And you'd think he's dead, but no, he's just stuck in the belly like Jonah in the Jonah in the well. And he runs across Fantasy's wand and tries to use it. Doesn't work for him for some reason. And he starts hearing the Pagemaster whispering in his mind, or speaking to him, saying, read the books, read the books, read the books. So he goes through all the books, Alice in Wonderland, and he opens the part where the queen pops up and says, off with his head. So he closes that book and starts looking through all the books, and he finds finally the one that he needs. Checking the beanstalk. Opens it up. Big beanstalk comes out of the dragon, and it's basically like a weird looking upchuck. So my colleague Richard Tyler's holding on to it and then screaming, I don't like heights, I hate heights. And as he's going, he grabs the books. They go all the way up, and as they finally make it up, he gives Fantasy the wand. She gives him a kiss, and nobody knows what happened to the dragon. Presumably that's the end of the test, or he's dead or something. And yeah, they open the door. It's like I said, something out of the Wizard of Oz. There's a big little fiery machine whirlwind thing right there, and of course Pagemaster steps out, and the books bow to him as if he's their god or something. And of course Richard Tyler's like, what the hell are you doing here? And they're like, don't say that, he's the Pagemaster, we gotta respect him. He's like, why would I respect the guy who put me through all this crap? Do you have any idea what you did? And he's like, no, why don't you tell me? He's like, I almost got ripped to shreds by a psychomaniac doctor. I was made a cabin boy to a bunch of psychotic pirates, and I was lunch for a fire-breathing reptile. And he's like, yeah, but you're right here before me without a scratch on you. He's like, you make a good point. And he's like, don't you get it? What would have happened to you if I would have just brought you here and you didn't have to go through all this. It's a whole lesson. And then all the characters that he's faced, from Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, come and they congratulate him. Well, two of them do. Dr. Jekyll's like, you conquered evil. Long John Silver shows up and he's like, you got you brought the inner pirate in you out. And don't matter what anybody else says, you're a true pirate. And of course the dragon just roars. because it's a dragon. It don't speak. It's not Peach Dragon or Dragon Heart or anything like that. It just roars. And he's like, this was the whole point of you coming here, just to help you conquer your fears, help you to be a new person. And he shows him himself on the floor. And he's like, hey, that's me. And he's like, yeah, that's the former you. And he's like, okay, well, I'm ready to go home. He's like, and then he hugs them and he's like, I mean, we're ready. And so he sends them home in a basic knockoff copy of Wizard of Oz, and he ends up back in his body, astral projection, basically. And of course, the books land on the floor next to him. And Christopher, then as he's barely waking up, Christopher Lloyd finally comes to his aid. You'd think he would go check on the boy throughout the whole damn movie. Nope. He left the ball alone for a good chunk of the movie. And he helps him up, and he's like, you alright? You took quite a fall. And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. And he's about to take off, but then he's like, wait, I forgot something. And he checks out the books, but of course Christopher Lloyd's like, you can only check out 2. And of course the little boy starts crying. He's like, no, I need him. I need horror. You gotta let me check out this one too, please. He's like, dude, it's cool. I get it. Just this once, alright? And he's like, alright. As he's walking away, Christopher Lloyd just has this weird, creepy look on him. Like, yeah, that's my boy. He conquered his fear, or something like he knew something that was suspicious. And it's so funny because after all that, the kid finally has the guts to jump the ramp, and he's all excited. He's like, yeah, I finally did it. And he goes home. His parents are freaking out, worried. They come home, they're looking for him, and they find him up in the treehouse, sleeping. They're freaked out because that's not their son, but they accept it, and they're finally like, the mom's like, take him down, let's put him in bed. And it's like, the dad's like, no, let him sleep up here, let him enjoy it. So, of course, the dad puts him to sleep, covers him up, turns off the light, and right then and there, turns out the 3 books are somehow alive with no explanation. Horror tells fantasy, scared of the dark, so she turns on the lamp and they start talking because they're happy. They finally got checked out after so many decades. They were so dusty and moldy that the slightest turn could have probably turned dust. And it basically ends with horror smooching, the sound of horror smooching adventure, but he wanted a kiss from fantasy. And I gotta say, this movie for kids, decent. It was good. Back in the day, it was good. You know, but what I understand from it now. I mean, as a kid, I loved it. I didn't actually care, but now that I'm older, I see that it was propaganda. It was basically trying to get kids to read more. It was made to get kids to read more. Like other films were trying to get them to be more environmentally conscious, environmentally aware. This one was geared toward trying to get people to read more. What I didn't like was that certain characters that were eluded, I know for time constraints they couldn't do anything, but you could have at least elaborated more on the story. You know, you have the characters there. They showed pictures of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. They showed Robert Louis Stevens as Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Treasure Island. You could have at least given more detail on those characters for those that have not read the books. There's hints of the books everywhere. I mean, sure, people that actually went to libraries back in the day instead of perusing internets knew what these books were and would read them. I mean, I've read them, but like I said, for me, it was a whole new revenue. I did not know about them for me, it wasn't this movie that did it for me. For me, it was actually watching the original cartoons, the original stories, especially when I used to watch this show called Wishbone. Another story for another time. Which basically would do the same premise, but it gave you more detail. Whereas this, for time constraints, I bet if they wanted to do more of an hour, they probably could have elaborated more. That's what I would have loved. That's what I like the film, the pure nostalgia and everything. You know, even though the animation is kind of dated, um, but I love it. You know, I grew up with it, and it. Like I said, it intrigued me. The characters intrigued me. The acting was pretty good. Good character choices. I mean, I've never Frank Welker, pretty good choice because, of course, he has voice acting skills. I was never aware of, you know, Whoopi Goldberg having voice acting, um, or Patrick Stewart at all doing voice acting as a kid. Because I never knew who these people were, but now I understand who they are, and you know I'm more aware of their acting credentials, and everyone did a good job. Ed Begley Jr. did pretty good. You could tell, even though he's a tough but fair father. Macaulay Culkin did it pretty good as, you know, a scared, nervous, paranoid kid that went through something to go get a hero. But like I said, almost everything went through that. It was like a modern day telling of, you know, Neverending Story, Wizard of Oz kind of fantasy type of deal. But like I said, they could have elaborated more with the characters. If I was making this movie, I would have, instead of having books be the assisting characters, why not have like the characters from the stories come and help him? Like, for example, why not, like, the first test is horror? Why not have, you know, even because you could see Sleepy Hollow in there, the book, barely if you actually look. Why not have something like Ichabod Crane, or actually Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, where he's struggling to control Hyde. He decides to help him. He runs across him in the library, and he decides to help him. The character helps him understand the concept of fear, good and evil, etc., etc. And then when he goes to the adventure area, conquers that scene. He goes to the adventure area. He gets help from a hero of adventure, of, you know, swashbuckling. Maybe I don't know, Blackbeard, or of course, why not Long John Silver or something, and, you know, helps him there. And then when he gets to fantasy, he runs into King Arthur, and each of them, as they're going through, they're learning. He's learning more about the characters. The characters are telling him about their adventures, their trials, their problems, and it's hitting him, and all this stuff is just affecting him, and you could see it changing him, making him more courageous, making him more less afraid of things, less paranoid. It changes the character, allows him to grow better, you know, and you learn more about the story, you learn more about the character, and as he's going, you know, the character, as he's going, of course, same thing, but instead of those dusty books, why not have the actual books of the actual characters pop out with him, like, you know, of course, King Arthur's right, King Arthur lands, Dr. Jekyll lands next to him, or and Treasure Island too. But also, why not have other stories pop up? You know, because they hinted at Sleepy Hollow, they hinted at Fairy Tales, Mother Goose. You know, have them pop up too. You know, in there. You know, giving little advice, little tidbits. I know time constraints and everything, but that would have made more sense to elaborate on more stories if you wanted to get kids to read. I mean, at the most, it was a good promotion for pizza, because I remember that commercial. But in my opinion, that would have been good. That's what I would have done. But all in all, the director, he did good, and he's still doing good. I mean, he's responsible for Captain America, helping make Captain America. All the actors, good choices. It was a good 90s flick. I loved it. 20th Century Fox, you know, back then they did such good work. They still kind of do some good work, but I think they did a great job with this movie. I loved it growing up. It's one of my favorites. It was one of the favorites I had as a kid, and I still enjoy watching it today. But all in all, that's my thoughts on the movie. I mean, what were your thoughts when you saw this movie? Even today, do you still like it? Do you find it annoying about it being a propaganda for books? Do you have your kids watch it? What do your kids think? Do they like it? Or do they prefer something way different? If you were making this movie, what would you change? And well, anything y'all guys want to tell me about this, or any, what do you about this? Just put it in the comments. Press the subscribe button, hit the bell. Leave me a comment, leave me a message, tell me what you think of these reviews, and I'll be glad to hear from y'all. Have a good day, and I hope to make more videos to come. Alright, peace. I'm out.